Coming up on The World Today, a call for climate action as world leaders are gathered in Glasgow, Scotland for COP26. The UK prepared to take legal action against France over the ongoing dispute about post-Brexit fishing rights. Plus, local elections underway in South Africa. Thanks for joining us on the programme today. I'm Tenyola Shoboale. Leaders from around the world are meeting in Glasgow, Scotland for the UN Summit on Climate Change with the hope that they make real pledges that will help save the planet. With China absent from the meeting, eyes will be turned to the United States, the world's second biggest emitter of carbon, and its big investment on climate through a key budget bill back home.
US President Joe Biden arrived in Edinburgh, Scotland, hours ago to attend the UN conference, which opens a day after G20 economies failed to commit to a 2050 target to halt net carbon emissions, a deadline widely cited as necessary to prevent the most extreme global warming. Talks in Rome had instead only recognized the key relevance of halting net emissions by or around mid-century and set no timetable for phasing out coal at home and watered down promises to cut emissions of methane, a greenhouse gas many times more powerful than carbon dioxide. Leaders committed to the Paris Agreement goal to hold the global average temperature increase well below 2 degrees Celsius and to pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. From today, many leaders will take to the stage in Glasgow to defend their climate change records and, in some cases, make new pledges at the start of 2 weeks of negotiations that Britain is billing as make or mar. Kicking off speeches at COP26, the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the anger and the impatience of the world will be uncontainable unless leaders make the meetings in Glasgow the moment they get real about climate change. He also said the world had the technology to deactivate the ticking doomsday device, although he says everything cannot be done at once. Boris Johnson also said that while politicians talk about what they're going to do in 2050 or 2060, the average age of COP delegates is over 60, and that the children that will judge us are not yet born.
We've got some commitments
on Sunday, he warned that the world is having a 1 minute to midnight moment.
Well, this is very, very urgent for not just for our country, for the whole world. And if I had to give a comparison, I'd say it was a 1 minute to midnight moment, and the clock is ticking. We have to get everybody to do more. We've made some progress at the G20. There's no doubt about it, and we've got some commitments on net zero that perhaps went a bit further than we were even hoping for.
The Prime Minister has said he's not in favour of more coal. As host nation, the UK wants all countries to commit to net zero emissions by 2050, as well as big reductions by 2030. It also wants specific pledges on ending coal, petrol cars and protecting forests, while developing countries want to finally receive $100 billion in promised annual funds to help them adapt to rising temperatures.
The VOA's Henry Ridgewell is in London. Henry, great to see you. You know, the speeches have started at Glasgow. Any indications they are headed in a more decisive direction than the G20 over the weekend?
Well, Tenyola, I'm actually in Glasgow at the summit, and just a few yards away from where the leaders are speaking. There are over 120 leaders representing their countries here at the summit, and each of them get something like 10 minutes on stage to defend their record and to possibly set out new commitments before the next leader is ushered onto the stage. And we have had some pledges in the last hour from President Biden, who spoke this afternoon He outlined what he called the United States long-term climate strategy, a pledge to get to net zero by 2050, and we haven't heard him lay that out in such clear terms previously. He's also been describing how the United States will make its first ever contribution to the Global Adaptation Fund. Now, that's a pot of money that's designed to help poorer countries deal with the effects of climate change, to mitigate those effects, and also to try to lower their emissions as well, although he didn't put any financial figure on the amount that America will give to that fund. But of course, it must be noted that much of those pledges and much of that legislation that President Biden spoke of has yet to be approved by Congress, and that underlines many of the problems that the leaders are facing here. It's very easy to make promises and pledges, as we've seen in previous climate summits. What's more difficult is getting the policies to enact those pledges on the ground. And what people are talking about here is not only what's happening on stage right now, it's also about who's not here. And of course, the big elephant in the room is that China isn't here at the summit, that President Xi Jinping has decided not to attend. He has given a written statement to COP26. There were indications that he may have been willing to give a live video link to the delegates here at the conference, but we understand that the United Nations officials overseeing the summit did not allow that. We've also heard from Boris Johnson, who has encouraged other leaders here to go far beyond what they've pledged already. And as you heard in that last report, he's described it as a minute to midnight, that the world has now run out of time and it's time to follow through on those promises. But we'll have to wait another 10 or 11 days until the end of the conference to really see what the result of COP26 will be.
And Henry, I'm hearing the warning about the world we're leaving behind for the younger generation, and I realize that this is the generation that will either be saved by actions this week or bear the brunt of inaction. Where's the voice of the younger generation in Glasgow?
It is here, and it is present, and they are vociferous. In fact, I've just spoken to a young Kenyan climate activist by the name of Kaluki Paul Mutuku, who has arrived in Glasgow from Kenya in the last few days. He's here to present his case. He's a 28-year-old, quite a famous climate activist in Africa, to make the point that the youth voice should be far more represented here. And I think people will notice that most of those leaders on stage are not young. They are of the older generation. They've overseen climate policies in the past which have created the problems that they're now trying to confront. But there are young people here. There are opportunities for them to make presentations. They have been giving speeches on the stage alongside the world leaders as well. And there has been a great fanfare when Greta Thunberg, the youth climate leader, appeared at the summit yesterday, and they will get further opportunities to make their voices heard. But it has to be said, it will come down to what those world leaders will decide in the next 2 weeks.
All right, then, VOA's correspondent Henry Ridgewell, thanks for bringing us up to speed.
Good to be with you.
And back here in Nigeria, a multi-story building located in the Ikoyi area of Lagos has collapsed, with many feared trapped on that the rubble. The multi-purpose building sited on Gerrard Road was under construction before it caved in. Well, our correspondent Dare Idowu's at the scene, and he joins us now live to bring us an update.
This is a real life situation. Don't tell us what to do. Don't tell us how to do our job. You just go back. No. We are not acting movie. You can cut it. This is not a movie. Cut it.
Derek, if you can hear me, what's the situation on ground presently?
What's the problem? Tanya, I can hear you, but I'll try to paint a few situations around here. It's quite chaotic. You can see the military in the background. They've been asking us to move far away from where the rescue operation is going at the moment. So the building in the background that you can see that is going down to ground zero is the 21-story building that caved in around 2 p.m. According to eyewitnesses, they say people were trapped in that building when the building caved in, and rescue operation has started, but it didn't start on time because before the excavators moved in, people were already resorting to self-help, trying to bring trying to rescue as many people as they could. But as we were here, we saw them bringing out body bags. They've been able to also rescue some people alive as well. It's been a developing story, a lot happening at the moment. Until we're able to find a stable spot to talk to you, the security operatives have been trying to move us around. Earlier, we were even trying to cross live. They were pushing and harassing journalists. That's the bit I can give you at this point. When you come back to us, we'll be giving you more updates as the events unfold around here, Tenny.
All right, Dari, thanks a lot. You know, it's a fast developing story, and I'm sure we'll be back to you for more updates on the situation. And now back to in Spain, when viewed from La Palma's highest point, where enormous telescopes dot the rocky landscape, the Cumbre Vieja volcano looks like a distant puff of smoke breaking through a blanket of white cloud to create a sense of serene isolation. But dust from the eruption, which has been wreaking havoc on the Spanish Canary Island for more than 40 days, can clog up machinery, scratch lenses, and cause electrical interference at the state-of-the-art observatory, hampering scientific work. Most of the instruments are within huge domes that shut when there is risk of ashfall. But two so-called magic telescopes designed to detect gamma ray burst into in distant galaxies via glittering mirror panels have no such protection. In the meantime, it's been 7 weeks since the volcano erupted, spewing lava across towns and villages. As of today, lava had covered more than 960 hectares of land, destroying more than 2,600 buildings and many banana plantations since September 19. In other news, Barclays has announced its chief executive, Jess Staley, will be standing down following British regulators' investigations into his dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. The bank said it was made aware on Friday evening of the preliminary conclusions from the Financial Conduct Authority and the Regulatory Authority's investigation into Staley's characterization to Barclays of his relationship with Epstein and the subsequent description of that relationship in Barclays' response to the regulator. Barclays said last year that Britain's financial regulators were probing links between Staley and Epstein, who killed himself while awaiting trial on sex trafficking offences. Staley has previously said his relationship with Epstein ended in late 2015 and that he regretted having any relationship with him. And still to come on the programme. Well, would you or would you not eat lab-grown meat? Well, scientists are saying it could save the world from climate change. More details in a moment. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says the UK is prepared to take legal action against France over the ongoing fishing dispute about post-Brexit fishing rights. Last month, the UK and Jersey denied permits to dozens of French boats to operate in their waters. In retaliation, France threatened to block British boats from some of its ports and cut electricity to Jersey.
Well, France has made completely unacceptable threats, first of all to our fishermen, but also to the Channel Islands in terms of their energy supply. And we need them to withdraw those threats. If they don't withdraw those threats, we are prepared to use the dispute resolution mechanism in the trade deal we signed with the EU to take action against the French. They have behaved unfairly. The fishing licenses were awarded entirely in accordance with the trade deal we negotiated, and we now need them to withdraw those unreasonable threats that they've made.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron says Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison lied to him over the cancellation of a submarine building contract in September and indicated more was needed to be done to rebuild trust between the two allies. Macron and Morrison were in Rome for the G20 summit. It was the first time they had met since Australia scrapped the $37 billion submarine deal with France as part of a new security alliance with the United States and Britain announced in September. Dubbed AUKUS, the new security alliance would give Australia access to nuclear-powered submarines. The deal caught Paris off guard and saw the French ambassadors recalled from Washington and Australia amid accusations France had been betrayed.
AUKUS deal was very bad news for France, but not just for France, because I think it's a very bad news for credibility and of Australia, and a very bad news for the trust that great partners can have vis-à-vis Australia. So I had a very direct discussion with Prime Minister Morrison about this issue. Your country was shoulder to shoulder with us during the wars. You had fighters with us when our freedom was at stake. We do have the same value. So I think we have to honor this common past and these common values. But I think you can have disagreements. I do respect sovereign choices. But you have to respect allies and partners, and it was not the case with this deal. And I think this is detrimental to the reputation of your country and your party.
French President Emmanuel Macron speaking there. Now some updates from the COVID-19 pandemic. Countries around the world are reopening as more people receive COVID-19 vaccinations and economies slowly recover. Australia's eased its international border restrictions for the first time during the coronavirus pandemic, allowing some of its vaccinated public to travel freely and many families to reunite, sparking emotional embraces at Sydney's airport. After 18 months of some of the world's strictest coronavirus border policies, millions of Australians are now free to travel without a permit or the need to isolate on arrival in the country.
It's a pretty emotional day today. We lost my father-in-law last week, so it's happy feelings and sad feelings all at the same time, but so glad to see our family finally.
And this is the relief of we're finally here. It's been a long week, it's been a long 24 hours. We've been traveling for probably more than that now, and just the relief of seeing them. Sheer gut-wrenching sadness of why I'm here, but you know, you can't fault the fact that you're at least I'm here, so I'm so grateful for that.
While travel is initially limited to Australian citizens, permanent residents and their immediate families, it sets in motion a plan to reopen the country to international tourists and workers. Meanwhile, Thailand has become one of the first destinations in Asia to open up to tourists to rescue its battered economy. Fully vaccinated tourists are required to present a proof of vaccination pass to health officers and immigration upon arrival. Thailand has lost about 3 million tourism-dependent jobs and an estimated $50 billion a year in revenue due to COVID-19. It's a similar situation in Israel, as vaccinated foreign tourists are now allowed to visit the country, as it eases international border restrictions significantly for the first time in 18 months. Only foreigners who got their second or third COVID-19 vaccine jab within the last 6 months are allowed in the country, with some exceptions such as humanitarian or medical needs. In other developments, non-working period has started in Russia as the country reported 40,402 new coronavirus cases and 1,155 deaths in the past 24 hours. The day before, Russia reported 40,993 new COVID-19 infections, its highest single-day case tally since the start of the pandemic. Authorities are trying to curb the spread of COVID-19 by closing many workplaces for paid non-working days and imposing other restrictions all over the country. In South Africa, over 26 million people were registered to vote in the country's municipal elections to decide who controls cities and towns. Some glitches were reported in Cape Province in KwaZulu-Natal because of community protest. Earlier, President Cyril Ramaphosa cast his ballot, while the ruling African National Congress is hoping to avert its worst result since the end of white minority rule. Ramaphosa remains popular after mobilizing grants that prevented COVID-19 from becoming a hunger crisis. However, lasting poverty, crumbling infrastructure, and nearly a third of workers unemployed means that some voters have lost patience with the party that has ruled for 27 years. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, has been monitoring the situation. Betty, let's begin with the voter turnout. How has that been for the better part of today?
Hello and thank you. Well, regarding voter turnout, it was better in some areas than others. We know of incidents that happen in some provinces like KZN where you had protests. You also had protests in Gauteng, in areas of Chawelo area, some other places where people protested and talking about what had been promised and hadn't been done, and then we're here for elections again. But turnout was a bit low in KwaZulu-Natal, where you've recorded violence for some time. But the police minister, Bheki Cele, had said, reassured people that some of these isolated incidents were contained and that he encouraged people to go out to vote, that it was safe enough for them. But definitely the insecurity or the violent episodes that have been recorded in the area may have put some people off. But turnout, according to the chairman of the IEC, that's Independent Electoral Commission, Glenn Mashinini, he's happy. He said about 3.5 million people had turned out to vote. And we know that before elections, you have the registration for special votes. There are people who may not want to be in the crowd, or who are old and who are not too well, or those serving in other places. They will want to, they often are allowed to register to vote earlier than the day, so adding that may add to the numbers. But turnout average enough, but people seem very determined to vote out people that they don't want, or parties that they do not want to be in their areas anymore. In some places, it's people wanting the ANC to leave. In some areas like Tabeha, which is in the Eastern Cape, you have people saying we want the DA out of our community. So generally, there's a voter annoyance and voter determination to get those who they don't want or who haven't let them right to be voted out of office, and they've been told that their vote is their power. So many are determined to actually cast their vote.
Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, giving us an update on the elections there. And now back here in Nigeria, a multi-story building located in the Ikoyi area of Lagos has collapsed, with many feared trapped under the rubble. The multi-purpose building, sited on Gerrard Road, was under construction before it caved in. Earlier, the spokesperson of the National Emergency Management Agency in the Southwest told Channels Television that one body had been recovered from the rubble. Officials of NEMA and the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, as well as operatives from the disaster response units of the Army and Air Force, are on the ground for the rescue operation. The Lagos State government has blamed intermittent building collapses in the state on poor compliance with physical planning laws. We'll have more on that situation on our website and in subsequent bulletins. Bye for now.